Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think we're waiting for another member, but we certainly have a quorum right now. We are recording. If you could join us for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Kasich.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo. Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Bush. Aye.
And you should have received the minutes. Right after. Any questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll put the motion.
Motion to accept.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kasich.
Abstain.
Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Bush. Aye.
We have 3 items up that are also in our public hearing for tonight. So what we're going to do is we'll hear from the homeowner and or developer first, and then ask a few questions. If anybody wants to make comments, our only request would be use the microphone so that it can be heard and recorded. And then also write your name and address over here first so that we don't have to go through that. Worry about telling your name. We will start with a fence variance on Salida, 7345 Salida.
Mr. Becker.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Asking for a variance on the fence between Overlook Park and the property at 7345 Salida Road.
Right.
It'll be an 8-foot wood privacy fence between the two.
Are you the property owner?
I am representing Mr. Brown. I'm the landscaper with the plan.
You're the landscaper, so you're covered up.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, and you have the full plan there.
Yes, I have.
Okay,
I have full
You
copy.
want to roll? Sure.
you are welcome. And that is a 5-foot chain link, right?
That is existing, correct.
That is existing.
The new fence will be 8-foot wood. So it'll be down to the road. where we'll drop.
Okay, at what point does it drop down?
We have 24 feet, if that's okay. That's approximately where it meets the fence from Overlook Park and then across. At the gate, correct.
At the gate.
Correct.
So does that extend beyond what the current fence is then?
No.
No, okay, it kind of follows that.
The existing fence, so exactly.
Is the existing fence on city property or?
It is on city property. It is within a foot.
Fence would be going on city property,
On the property line.
just on the lawn.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, so I will go ahead and express my concern. A couple of years ago, we had the two pieces. On the other side of Overlook, the resident there came and requested a variance. We approved only 6-foot high fence, although the variance that we did approve was they were able to extend it beyond the corner of the property because it was a parking lot. But I certainly see the idea and wanting to privacy and certainly appreciate that you would remove a broken fence. I don't know that I want to get into extending to an 8 foot. This would be business area that we would have an 8 foot fence. That's kind of my personal concern. I do like that you're starting out with a 4 foot, so that means any, especially coming across and whatnot.
It will abut with the existing fence. There is a purpose, correct? Along with that, so we're gonna-
Do you have a picture? Is it a dog where it's alternate?
It's just, it's not alternate, it's just 8 foot. It's done at the top.
Solid on one side or
Solid on that side.
it's the park, I'm assuming?
Is there a reason they want 8 foot?
He just wants to privacy. He's had a lot of people walk over the construction. Sure. So that's primarily why I want to see it. So just for privacy.
My concern is necessarily the because of the landscaping. What's the habitat of the trees that are proposed? Meaning dimensional height.
That's why this industry is 20, 30, 40, 50.
Yeah. And so 8 feet will not seem down the road. That's is the weathering and checking and bowing of an 8 foot fence. So that is, you start out with a nice straight fence and year 3 now it looks like this.
The company doing the fence, we share the fence, and they have upgraded all the posts and that's heavier.
6 by 6.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a 4 by 4.
Right, but this wouldn't work. This would work. So we have upgraded that because we think that. Fence and so-
Brown. Take on the maintenance, if there is an issue. It's just gonna be-
It's an 8 foot fence. Is the other one down?
No, it's a chain, it's not that.
Which you let them take.
Always in the city.
Oh.
Oh, I need to.
Right. It's a city.
Yeah, I thought the note that we had. Yes. Well, no, it's a taking this property. From a legal perspective. Put it on.
Well, it would be a
Essential, okay.
donation.
I don't know why you would do that.
Right, the city fence now is about a foot off the existing property line. as it stands.
Right, and so what I'm
Well,
saying
but-
is you put it in on this side.
But that, well, my point is the park is not residential. The neighboring parcel is. It's an 8 foot fence, you can put it on.
Well,
I'm sure
parks
Jimmy's
are
plans
limited
on
to
making
whatever
the fence.
One way to overcome a 6 foot objection.
It's okay.
I am.
And with all the landscaping, trees and everything.
So you're thinking 6 foot?
Yes.
Why did it explain?
Because when the homeowner on the other side came to us,
Oh,
we had them do a 6-foot,
yeah.
and our conditional use was only that it was, we had them allowed to extend a bit beyond the front of their house because it was a perfect lot. And so for me, I feel like we need to be consistent in the residential piece. Yes, the property itself is a park, but the residential parcels.
So you're gonna have a problem with that.
Which we eliminate what if possible.
I know you want the privacy, I respect.
And he can appeal it. That's.
Did the neighbor ask for a 7? Did I hear you correctly? He
I
asked
don't
for a
recall
12.
if they asked for it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I do know that we
You
talked
approved
about
6.
6.
They wanted to correctly to the street.
They wanted to run it all the way.
Which that's 6 foot all the way to the street. where we have the last.
We'll hold for public comment.
Yeah, that's not what's for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Because we get back, if the 24-foot setback that we have for the fence now, if we take that back, we can just put approval to there. And then drop it.
No, I'm fine. with it. I think it's not sure what. Anybody else?
You don't think the point is privacy?
No, no. I don't think that 2 more feet at that point, to see who's gonna have it landscaped appropriately. I need more privacy than anybody else in any other part of our city. And it was in a parking lot, right? Like you said, where there's a business going onto a residential, we want the 8-foot and we want a berm or buffer. Usually that's because of noise and because of he's abutting onto a park. Doesn't she have the noise and the parking issue beyond? So that's my perspective. I think we start to slide down that slope. Well, I have a reason for an exception for my big footprints. That's my consistency factor.
And you're saying he could go to those.
That's a different concept.
Or it offer to replace the city's fence.
Yeah, that's up to us about whether
Right.
it should be 6 or 8 feet. My thoughts on it, 6 feet. Because it's more important.
Hey, now, as far as he's got 6 foot, 8 foot, what is he trying?
Again, it's just for the privacy factor. We've had a lot of people walk over it. It's-
I'm sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Those of us who live on the lake have that.
Oh, yes.
I get 2 or 3 of that.
You have to understand, we're not against you.
No,
Yeah,
I understand.
You know, people are gonna walk right down the road. Oh, that's-
But I have a problem if we told the one on the other side, it would only be 6 foot, that's. Hoping he understands.
All right. Do we have some folks who, from the public, who want to make,
Yeah,
feel free to come up so we can hear you and
I'll sign
you
in.
can do that later.
Susan Lenahan, 7359 Slide. I'm on the other side of this property from the park.
Oh,
And
was
so-
that your fence that we talked about?
No, I'm on the other side of this property. So
Oh, you're on this.
I'm 2 away from the park.
Got it, sorry.
And so I just wanted to, I wasn't aware of that on the west side.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I get that. I mean, I'd be upset if that was mine. I'll just say from living there, the way the park's laid out, if you ever go to that park, so the west side really doesn't have any beach. The east side of it, when the stairs were there, all the beach is to the east. And that's where everybody's hanging out. And now that we've all done revetment work, they're climbing the rocks and coming up and coming around. I've found naked people having sex on my property. So I hear what you're saying, that you do have people pop up, but when you're next to a park, it's very different, and they climb the fence and they go around the fence. And there is a lot of noise. We do get a lot of noise there. So I will tell you, I'm glad to see the park have so much activity. I think the mayor's been out there and Kevin has been out there and seeing how much it gets used. But we get a lot of noise. We get a lot of after hours riffraff. They're, breaking their curfew and they climb the rocks and they come around. So I think that part of his thought process is a little bit more height, just buffer the sound a little bit, be a little bit more of a deterrent. He's not trying to build a castle, he's just trying, because there's not a fence on my side. So he's just trying to really just have some privacy and protect his property and his kids from what goes on there. And we get a little bit of everything. But that does stink that I didn't know that it was on the other side too. That's hard to reconcile, but that side is a little bit different and that there's not access like there is on the east side. So just for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a little bit
Thank
different.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that we stopped the problem with people climbing down the ravine.
No,
But-
it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
Where does that fence turn? To the north.
Right at the edge.
Right, yes, you are.
As far as it goes.
Right to the stone.
Right, so as far as it goes.
Yeah, definitely one of those. But,
I don't want to hear from the other neighbor. Why did you let him?
Well,
Unless somebody can convince me that isn't a problem.
But I also don't want to hear, you guys let him do it because he got nothing.
Oh, yeah, we'll hear that.
Say,
Sorry.
he is improving the park.
he's improved his
Yeah.
property. Yeah.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Madam Chair, may I come speak?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, if anybody
I
else
come up
wants
to
to
one of
talk.
these meetings to speak, but
As
as a resident and as a Ward 3 councilman, my concern is that if you would allow an 8-foot fence here, you also have the other parks around, including McMinn, where you have Springwood Drive, a lot of homes abutting that. What would stop them from wanting 8-foot fences? Or here at City Hall, where we have our own park, there's also houses along there. Again, are we going to start allowing other residential properties to have 8-foot fences? Once you start one, you start that snowball effect. So,
Thank you. Anyone, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the public part. Anybody else want to make a comment on this particular?
Hi, Bill Cleveland, Select Road, and I hear all the arguments, and I'm wondering, why is it 8-foot fence bad? We have citizens here that pay taxes, they want some privacy from whatever other activities are going on. These are all good activities, there's nothing wrong with that, it's wonderful that we have parks. But I guess I just don't see the problem with an 8-foot fence. If it helps taxpaying people enjoy their property and sure, make it more secure and more private, I think we ought to do that. Whether, and if everybody else wants to do it, let them too. I mean, they're not building it down the center of Andrews Road or down the middle of the park. I just don't see it as really a problem. And the fact that you have one property that was allowed only 6 feet, okay, you've got to take this on a case by case situation. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong to put 6 feet, but I think you need to consider the here and now. The people that you have, their personal situation, and maybe give them serious consideration.
Anyone else? All right. Motion for consideration. What are your motions?
the request as it was made
As proposed,
is proposed.
so we look at having a 4-foot that goes to an 8-foot. All right, so we have a motion on the table. We can go ahead and consider. Any further discussion? None, we call the roll. Oh,
Yeah,
wait, sorry about that.
Okay.
we have a second? Okay, we have no consideration. Do we have a revised, anybody want to make a revised or different motion?
Yeah, I think the motion, 6 foot, 1 foot, 4 foot.
So we follow the same line and the same plan with the 6-foot fence instead of the 8-foot, but then the 4-foot. And a second.
Second.
All right. Mr. Mayor, could you call the roll?
Mrs. Casey.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo.
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Bush. Aye.
Back if you can let them know that we approved the 6-foot fence. If they have any questions about what their next steps might be, I think they could probably speak with me.
Yep. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up for consideration is 7896 Sharon Drive, corner fence application. It sounds like there was some mix up last time, so thank you for coming back.
I have pictures.
I'm just here to translate my mother's.
Ah, okay, and you are
I'm her daughter, Eva.
Eva, what's your last name, Eva? Rakovic?
That is same service.
Thank you for sharing that. So all we need you to do is let us know kind of based on the photo, what you're looking at, what your folks are looking at, or your mom's looking at for her fence here.
So just a standard fence as it was before. She just wants a white vinyl fence. She is running kids now and it looks better, aesthetically better. There was just standard fence.
Like a chain, like,
Yeah.
okay, because there's one in the back still,
Yeah,
right?
there
Like
is,
along the-
and they plan on replacing that one at some point, but this one's more important because of the kids now.
Okay.
That's-
What's this mark? What's this mark?
Oh, so this is where there's gonna be like a little door.
Oh,
So
a gate of
that's, yeah,
some
like a
sort.
little gate.
So there's a photo of, I'm sure, with the fence that you're planning on.
Yes.
I think that was the second page that you submitted as well. It looks like this runs right to the sidewalk. Is that the case?
They will said that they will be 6 feet or 5 feet, whatever. it's
From
like,
the
From
sidewalk?
the sidewalk, yes. They measure that it aligns with the neighbor's fence, so it will align with this. It's not-
So the, corner lots are always a kind of a concern and issue because it's actually 2 front streets. That's why we have front on Sharon, and front on Victoria. I do think that the 2 homes across the street, so from Sharon Drive, it's like I think they fronted on the Fenwood, have a similar setup.
Yeah, they
It
do.
is
That's
6
what she
to
saw.
8 feet off of the sidewalk. And yeah, I couldn't tell that. That was my concern from the photo, or from the drawing. But what I'm hearing you say is it would be 6 feet off of the sidewalk.
What, I guess they know, I don't know. I've never
Okay.
done this before,
Yeah, I'm
so-
kind of clarifying it for our recording. so,
Okay.
And it would be part of it. Does anybody have any other questions?
What is the height of the fence? The neighbor has, is it chain link fence?
No, it's a vinyl. Like,
This
No,
one,
but the neighbor has
I think
this one in the back is a 4-foot chain.
So there's not a fence going there.
This one is the current chain, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's down the side there.
Yeah, it's kind of in the back. This neighbor has it back here.
And that's a 5-foot fence?
I believe that's.
I think it's a 4-foot standard 4-foot chain. Oh, existing 4-foot, it does say that on the drawing.
Does say.
So we're looking right now, the line is right off of the sidewalk, but you're saying, when you said indicated, they'd be 6 feet off of the sidewalk?
Yes, whatever the rule is, we assume that they know what
Yeah, they tend to not know.
Yeah,
yes,
So
they do.
we'll
And I
make it
did,
clear.
I did pull into the neighbor driveway there, here, it is about 5 to 6 foot long. It's not go right up to the side.
Now, is that a permitted fence though? This one?
Yeah, the
No,
existing
no,
one.
not
The existing one, it's as old as the front.
And that's fine. I'm curious about this one. Your reference-
Oh, I
reference.
don't remember that.
That's a 6 foot,
You're talking about Fenway.
This is, the Fenwood one is a 6 foot, this is actually.
but is that permitted?
Come up right.
Well, my,
Hold on a second.
well, no. My concern is it doesn't mesh with our fence. In that it's vision impairing, it's 6 feet, whereas front yard requirement for vision impairing is 24 inches high. 2 front yard setback, 3.5 feet. Beyond that, I believe, vision impairing. I had asked this issue be brought to council's attention.
Because it's a corner. You're saying because it's a.
Well,
corner.
our ordinance says because it is a corner,
Correct.
both the side yard and front yard on the corner lot are both treated as 2 front yards.
Right,
So it's 2 40-foot setback.
right.
We're talking about 6 feet away. So my contention is our fence ordinances should really reflect what we are considering improving at this lot instead of every, yeah, I mean, what is it that we want to have happen relative to fences? Now, our fence ordinances, I will say, are consistent with that throughout the country. There's nothing here that I haven't heard before. I'm just being a stickler and saying if we're going to sway from the ordinance, we need to identify by how much. That's all.
So the ordinance states no fence on the corner,
2.5 foot.
2.5.
Any
foot.
vision impairing fence,
You mean only 2.5 foot off the ground?
2 feet, 24 inches.
It's a front yard.
Now, that's not to acknowledge that it hasn't happened.
Well, that we haven't provided additional use for
Yes.
as the neighbors across the street.
And the ordinances refer to growth. So it's not just the structure. Even the vision impairing hedge growth. That includes that too, 24 inches. And that's probably more frequently.
And growth.
Right. So we don't expect everybody to cut it down. And maybe this should be a conditional use issue.
Should we take this up in the ordinance to the-
Yes. Yeah, and I don't see the individual here. And so I think that's just a matter of housekeeping on our end.
I would like to need to look at, especially in our new business tonight.
And so maybe for a conditional use, you could hear a motion that, you know, the biggest concern is the vision. And kids, you know, using the sidewalk, being able to see a car or vice versa. That's really the biggest concern that I have. And what is an acceptable distance off of sidewalk?
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, please, go ahead.
5 or 6 feet should be fine.
6, we can't, we need to have a number.
Yes, and we don't have a number in here,
Well, 6 feet is generally
so it needs to be at least 6 feet
from
so,
the side.
so people can see.
From the sense of the
Is
For the
that,
back
and I'm new, I mean, is that really kind of the
Yeah.
litmus test?
99% of the time.
Well, then, you know, I'd say I'm more than willing to continue with that if that's what we've done.
Well, I think you're right, though, that we need to consider longer term, but
Yeah.
we may look at it. I mean, the difference is then they, you know, folks do come in, we can look, and there are times depending on driveway considerations that we can just say, it's right out, and there's no way anybody will see, there's no way a child.
Right. And it may not be on this situation.
I feel like there was the one on
Marine Parkway.
Marine and Lake Shore.
We need to go 15 feet because it was right at the sidewalk. and it would have been better. In this case, I think.
But you've been out there, you said 6 feet is would be fine.
I was in the driveway.
Yeah, but-
Pickup truck, so I didn't have any problem. So definitely need to set the precedent. There's still case by case situations.
Yes, that's what we're.
But there is a driveway here. There's a
There
driveway
is?
Here,
Yes, there is. And
so
she still
they
would
wouldn't be able.
Well, it's gonna be 6 feet off, and
The
it's
sidewalk,
still
that's-
a couple of feet off the house. So 6 feet off the sidewalk.
So they'd still be able to see if they were backing up.
Correct. And somebody coming down the sidewalk.
It's a set off driveway, 8 feet is that?
I think that's the biggest criteria.
You've got 6 feet and 8 feet.
What you say, 6 feet?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as we can see, or the car backing out can see, or somebody walking down the
I
sidewalk.
think for me, the other thing is that there isn't a driveway behind, is actually on the other side of the their house.
Right.
So we also have another, you know, which is in other areas, we had driveways right there too, and so we have those.
So we technically probably could approve this one.
Well, we could. It's actually up to us, it's to issue a condition.
And then, yes, the ordinance does give planning and zoning the leeway, I think, for the, does do that.
And I think council would, you know.
Well, let's put that, we put that to the side for now, and I don't want them to have this. But let's put that up again, I'm gonna table that to the
6 or 8 feet off the sidewalk.
6 feet.
Okay, 6 feet or whatever.
All right, I want to open this up. This is in the public hearing portion. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the fence at 7896 Sharon Drive? Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve? I want to clarify that this would be 6 foot off of the sidewalk. Just because the drawing is unclear, so we'll clarify that for minutes and do it from it. Thank you. And a second. All right. Mr. Mayor.
Casey.
Aye.
Mr. Stroh.
Hi.
Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Busher. Aye.
All right. Thank you. This has been approved. So you can talk with Holly, get the permit, and that's what most will need to go ahead. Okay, thank you. You don't have to stay.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Even if you put the 4 foot, she would be okay with that.
Okay, good. Next, 7790 Lakeshore Boulevard. I think we have Rick Summers.
Good. Thanks for that. Yep.
I could stand here with everybody else. But
No, you can stand here as long as I think you can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Just a brief history. I don't want to get caught up too much on the history of, what has already transpired down there. We had submitted a plan of 35 high-end townhouses. We thought it would be a great fit for the site. We tried to work through council on a text amendment, some new zoning code for it. Again, we had a lot of confidence. I thought it would be a great asset. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for various reasons. drawing board with our team, our attorneys, our staff, and, we're committed to developing that site and researched your zoning code and found the RTAR, which is already exists. So, we're within our right to develop it under that, and came up with a 71 unit senior apartment plan that we presented a preliminary plan for. It actually permits on our site allowed up to 118 units, we're at 71. 1 acre minimum for senior apartments, we're just under 3. We're significantly over on parking. One of the other highlights of the plan, we're actually going to use the garages to buffer the existing residential and the commercial, so we think that'll be good. It won't be to have a physical structural buffer between the residential and the commercial there, the bar. So like I said, we had the original plan, but we had to go back to the drawing board, and that's kind of how we landed here based upon additional research and this code being in existence. So back in front of you guys to present and discuss the updated plan and move forward here.
Okay, so I just want to clarify kind of what our action is this evening, because I don't think I'm as clear. I think this is done just our preliminary discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so from a procedural perspective, we have a preliminary discussion. We can ask questions. We will have a public hearing, so we'll hear from folks, kind of take that sense. Based on that, we can, have additional asks, and all of that happens before the developer then will come back with some final drawings. And that will be that point of. So tonight is just our initial conversation, taking a look at these new drawings. Mr. Mayor, was there any thought, things that you wanted to add from your perspective based on conversations or
I
thoughts?
think the plan that Mr. Summers put together really fits into the city. If we look at any city in Lake County now, there is a lack of senior housing, no doubt about it. And I think this would be a great addition to our city, especially at that corner. If you look at the other senior housing, we have Andrews Place. I know a lot of times when I talk to Mary Beth, who manages that, they have a waiting list for a couple of years to get people into that type of housing. I think this would be a good fit for the city.
Couple other comments real quick too. We don't have that high level of detail yet, but I mean, we obviously plan, quality aesthetics and architecture, which would, be forthcoming with additional submittals. But, we want to be proud of what we developed there, what we attempted to do on the first go around.
Yeah.
We make it quality architecture and aesthetics as well. And that would be forthcoming, as we get into more detailed submittal.
If I could
Yeah,
comment, thanks for submitting this. This is, this is similar to the first go around that this board took their hat. And I see it as in my opinion, best land plan for the site. Putting the parking and traffic to both rear perimeters. The aesthetics I still want to see, of course, but the market is proven. It's there, like the mayor indicated. Yeah, this is something that I will reiterate that I would be willing to work with you.
Appreciate it. And the other thing that we liked about the configuration that really allows, like with the 3 wings, the center and the angle, that you can, optimize the big asset there in the lake views. You have a lot of opportunity to optimize the lake views with the center units and even the ones in the diagonal on both wings, which is nice.
This is exciting.
Appreciate it.
It's just 44 2.
It's planned for 3. Maximum height 40 foot allowed. We can go up to 40 feet.
Yes.
40 in the L and the senior district. It's 35 on the other classifications.
It feels dense to me, and I don't know whether it's just because it's 71 units, how big might those units be?
Square footage wise, I mean, again, we're still optimizing the building footprint, but square footage wise, I mean, 650 to 900, give or take. And again, the way the code,
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I know,
and
yeah.
it's based upon market studies too, because if you optimize unit design, you can get, a nice unit footprint of 800-900 square feet. Some people only want 650-700. You have an office or den, some guests in one bedroom. It's all about how you design it and the efficiency in design it. And I appreciate the comment about density, but like I said, we could go up to 118 the way the code's written.
Yeah.
We're substantially under that at 71. So
Legally, it's already zoned for.
You're a company with legal management team?
so our multifamily properties, we use a company out of Beechwood called RHM. They have like 25,000 units under management. Very professional, very reputable. When we got into this years ago, we interviewed everybody in town and got reference lists a mile long. They were the top-notch managers and managed properties all over this part of the country. So that's who we would be using for this to manage.
Other questions? If not, Mr. Summers, I'm gonna open it up and have a seat if you'd like.
Thank you.
So you can stand up. Any comments or questions? Thoughts? Here with us. Make sure you sign the letter. Okay, sign it.
Tester 7373 Salida. I do, one thing I do like on these is I do like the way you're using the parking structure on the, facing Park Street and then up and abutting against that, the bar. I do think that is sound. These sketches, it's really kind of hard to tell. I do think the density, I agree there. The one thing I would like to throw on the table that I know are probably way ahead of the game is considering the financial state of the city, to have tax abatement off the table. And that is what I would just like to have on the record. Thanks. Thank you.
My name is Paul Morris. I live at 7592 Pinehurst Drive, and I'm the Ward 2 councilman. First of all, after we went through all that stuff with the PUD and stuff, I thought our residents spoke very clearly. We want no more rental property. We're already over 40%. Adding more doesn't help. And as far as senior living stuff goes, I know for a fact, Salida Woods, which is up here on Lakeshore Boulevard, has 10 empty suites. Danbury is far from full, the last I heard. Both places are having trouble getting employees. So to add this to that, I know Andrew's place is packed. They've got a waiting list. I just don't know why they do and the others don't.
It's a different business, isn't it?
I-
Assisted living versus.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I know part of Salida Woods is just senior apartments,
Oh,
and I think Danbury is the same way.
same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm afraid that we'd be permitting something that's going to sit substantially empty possibly. And I'm concerned about that. And our residents did speak. They want no more rental property, please. So keep that in mind. The other thing I'd ask is that the law director be questioned whether or not rezoning what we did with business 1 and 2, whether that circumvents the RTARP stuff. Because the RTARP is from back in the late 70s, early 80s.
It doesn't seem to in the code, I would say
Okay,
that.
I just
but
wanna make
it's
sure.
certainly the-
Can I
yes,
clarify that,
part.
Madam President? Yeah, I clarify that for us?
Sure.
It is a permitted use in business zone 1.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Guess I'm a little confused. I'm Stan Pulaski, 7589 Salida, not confused with that. But at one of the council meetings, when they were talking about the PUD and all that, I thought council 2 years ago, kind of emphatic that land to be developed in the city, they didn't want any more high density living. What's the difference? An elderly place or condos you sell to whoever wants to buy one? To me, it's still high density living. Am I right or wrong? And why would that be the council's desire, planning for the future, to make that statement 2 years ago? And when I heard that, and they were unanimous except for one council member, because 2 years ago they were unanimous. No more high density living. We've got to do something else with this property. So with that, is it considered high density? And that's a lot of people in one spot.
You're
That's high
welcome to
density.
have your say, but it's what is in the district.
For me, I mean, high density for me, high density is one of quite a few variables I would be considering. It is a variable that it's certainly up there. But like I've said for many years here on a couple of boards, I've seen high density up there as well.
But now you're considering
So
opening.
density for density's sake is, it can be good and it can be bad.
Well, it just seems to me that putting in high-end condos for people to buy was considered high density. Now you're gonna, for the elderly, and that puts added pressure on your safety forces to respond to a facility that has a lot of elderly people. And I know I see that on Salida. I know the ambulance, they wore out their tires going down Salida.
I think that's,
Actually,
I think that's a good point. I mean, I do think one of the things that we look at in the plan and planning on all of our safety courses as well as
Earl Curris, 7523 Salida Road. Unfortunately, we're here right now as a result of lack of city planning. This is a classic example of what we've argued for 2 years. We need a master plan. We've been begging for a master plan. We have nothing. They have every legal right to do this, unfortunately, because there's no plan. So that church is going to go to whatever now, because my investor they'll never buy that church under this condition. So, guys, we created this mess. We're in it. We're in this mess because we couldn't agree on getting a company in here to set us up for the future. So for the next 20 years, we live with what we have.
What else? Just to be clear, I am equally against the rental idea, but if it has to go through, if it ends up that it is out of our control and it goes through, to me, the main priority would be at that point, the abatement issue. Thanks.
Juanita Miller, 7597 Salida. I have a question. What would be the requirements to stay in a facility like that? Are we opening up? We were worried about more low-income residents. Doesn't matter if they're seniors or not. Is this going to bring more low-income, more HUD projects, more? What are the requirements for getting in this facility?
Paying rent.
Paying rent,
Yes. If you can't afford the rent, then you're not going to stay there.
okay, but is that going to help the city then?
Mr. Summers, I'll defer to you.
Just don't know how far I want to take this.
I know.
Okay.
I
It was just
just-
a question. I didn't know what it would take. to get in.
Again, I don't want this to be combative. Like I said, we came up with a very nice plan. I think half the battle here is everybody has a different opinion and has never allowed progress here. There's been no investment, no new residential projects, it's aging, all the housing's aging in place. Everybody's protesting somebody that wants to come in and invest and build a beautiful new townhouse on the lake. Look at every healthy economy in every community here and beyond. And everybody has an opinion, and they wanted to block our last plan, which would have looked great up there. Maybe reinvigorated one of the ugliest areas around. I grew up a mile away, remember that, and now we're here. If I would have known I could have built 71 units in the first place, and it's just, the irony in it, it's just, it's frustrating, because we want to come and invest in the community. And everybody has an opinion and wants to block progress. That's my opinion. You know, and we're committed to developing the site.
Approximately what the rent would be in those
No,
apartments?
I'm not sure yet. And, you know, seniors are a protected class, and that's respectfully, that's not regulated. We could ask whatever rents we wanted. I'm trying to say that respectfully, but again, it's just, it's a little bit emotional for me at this point, the way it's transpired, because I think we had a great plan before. But, you know, that's, you know, there was opinions and it wasn't right, and, you know, we couldn't make that investment. Maybe spur some great momentum in the city by having, you know, brand new housing there, re-imaging a quarter, having other people want to come and invest in the city. But not, you know, argue, and now we land here. So, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be transparent on where we stand, so.
Well, we understand.
No,
I understand your frustration.
And I, you know, a master plan, I mean, if you never allow anybody to do anything, there isn't gonna be a plan. If you come in and wanna, I mean, we're not coming in, that corner needs, it's in desperate need of investment and re-imaging. I mean, again, I'm not gonna go through the whole history of it, but if people couldn't see the vision of having brand new high-end for sale housing there, then I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, there's not gonna be some mixed use Ferris wheel or, you know, rental. I mean, let's be realistic here. If we would have made that substantial investment and had high-end, beautiful townhouses there, it would have turned out great. And, you know, we're talking about tax revenue, you know, it filled in all the blanks. But again,
Well, and I'm gonna go back, just real quickly, my contention with the townhomes. What, you know, I was, on that. 71 units, if we're talking about density, now that's 3-story. Let's talk about use of land. It's a 2.59 acre site.
2.97, yeah.
Or 97. Well, my math, I'm gonna do this real quick. Let's assume it was 2.59 acres. Right? That's how I recall. 71 units in it's a 3-plex. It's basically three-story. The footprint basically equals to 9 units per acre. 3 buildings into 71 units is 23.67 units per acre, or 9 units per acre. The equivalent of the townhomes, and I just used 37 units, was it?
35.
Okay, well, at some point it was 37. That same site, under 2.59 acres, has a 14+ unit per acre under the townhomes. It's nearly twice the density under townhomes. Townhomes are bigger, and that was my contention. You have less open space. So insofar as utilization, the public's interested in open space and whatnot, in multi-use. But this is why I, anyway, think it's a much better plan, because it is a much more efficient use of the property. And we can argue back and forth, yeah, this is better and this is. But if you're so hung up on the density, this actually is less units per acre than the town.
I'm Stan Pulaski again, 7589 Salida. It seems to me we probably should have done what they wanted to do before, as far as putting housing or putting residential of some kind in the city. But doing what they want to do now, in my mind, is basically the same, except if you put the elderly in there, which I'm one of them, you have a greater chance of needing greater services. And in a way of ambulance, EMT, paramedic. And the reason why I say that, I put 32 years in the fire service. So I know something about what a community needs as it gets older. And staffing presently on your department is an issue. So you got to take that in consideration when you start putting in things for the elderly. is there'll be more transport. There'll be more on-scene needs. It just, if you're gonna go in that direction, high-density living, you gotta take in case of having staffing to take care of that type of tenancy.
Bill Clinton on Slide Road. I gotta agree with Greg Summers. This whole situation has been poorly managed by the city, by the public, and so on. I understand that the county has the dearth of rentals for seniors, but that doesn't mean Men Around the Lake does. Men Around the Lake doesn't need to compensate for the whole rest of the county. Maybe somebody else needs to put it in. Now, the way it turns out, last spring and early summer, when the PUD was being debated and pros and cons, and Greg was taking the task and so on, there was talk about changing the zoning to get rid of the senior housing part, along with tax abatement for things we don't want anyway. Obviously, in the euphoria of shooting down the condos, we forgot to close the barn door and the horse got out again. So Greg is totally within his rights and within the bounds of the current ordinance to put in a senior citizen. There's a damn thing we can do about that. If I had a magic wand, I'd say, hey, Greg, we're really sorry. How about we go back to the condos? Because that'll be nicer and actually bring in some tax revenues and so on. Knowing where we are now, we've screwed up. Now they got, Crane and Summers are doing an end run. I'd probably do the same thing in their situation. You screw me on the condos, I'll go around, hey, look at this. I can put in a high density senior.
Do we have
What?
specific comments about what's on the table versus?
Yeah, but these are pretty specific. So, all I would ask for planning and zoning is, if Summers is going to go ahead with this high density, and I guess I don't understand how 71 units on the same piece of land is lower density than 35. Maybe I'm a little weak on math. I was a math major in college, but I probably lost it over the last 60 years. So anyway, that's nonsense. The only thing I would ask of planning and zoning is stick to the basic zoning ordinances that are in there. 60-foot setback, maximum height, 35 feet, unless it's over commercial, and then it's 40 feet. That's about all we can ask of you. We can ask you not to grant a variance of 20 feet on the setback, because that's in the ordinance too. I actually read the ordinance. How many of you here actually read the whole damn ordinance? I would expect you
I'm
to.
sorry, I have too.
You have to.
prefer that we not
So you know what
question
I'm
our
talking about. The next loophole, because we didn't get rid of this senior housing type thing, when there was talk about doing it, ball got dropped. So let's at least stick with what's in there now, 60-foot setback and the height limitations. I'm sure that Greg will do a very fine job of going through that. There's nothing wrong with the Summers Group's construction abilities. They'll do what they say they're going to do. It's just we're back to 2 years ago, no high density. Here we are again praising, the mayor praising. Wow, this will be great. Let's put in some high density housing for seniors. I'm also frustrated in a different way.
And
I
I'm not
would ask
frustrated,
Greg Summers.
and I'm not
please-
frustrated with you and a whole bunch of you.
Well, you might be. On the other hand, where was this master plan? Where was the brain power? Where was the brain power from the city? I see nothing.
I'll let you finish, then I'll
I
start,
know.
okay?
Wow.
First off,
Who are you representing?
pardon me? No, you said something about what?
I said
Okay, I'll say it.
Please,
As considering what we've been called lately,
by who?
pick one. I'm not gonna name the name, but I hear the mumbles.
No, please.
No
Yeah,
problem.
okay, please go ahead.
I'm one of the dreaded Republican terrorist deplorables. So that's what I said to Ronnie. I said, well,
That came from one of us here.
That came from your fearless leader,
Who is that?
President of the United States of America.
Oh,
no, hang on.
All right, here's my 2 cents, okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, let's keep to the topic at hand.
Okay, first off, I don't worry about Danbury or Salida Woods because they're not in Mentor on the Lake, okay? What this has come down to is we have a property owner, Elaine Crane, who's decided I want to sell my property to the Summers Group and only the Summers Group. Now, what we witnessed over the last 6 months or so, yes, we want a master plan. Now, if there are any other developers out there that have seen anything going on here, are they going to want to come to Mentor on the Lake and develop anything? I mean, think about it. After all this, do we really need a master plan? I mean, where are we going to get a developer from that's going to come in and say, okay, I'm willing to go through what Mr. Summers has gone through to try to get something done in the city? And in my wisdom, I'm saying this is okay. I'm not the only one that's saying this is okay. That corner has looked terrible for how long now? And we're just gonna let it sit for another 40 years?
Then why didn't you do something about it for the last several years? You could have talked to Lane, said, Lane, you gotta tear down those buildings and get rid of the boats.
Elaine.
You and your staff let it stay like that year after year.
Okay,
Now you wanna throw us under the bus and say, well, we're gonna put in high density housing.
Yeah, so let's come back to the question at hand.
7359 slide, Susan Huntington. I just wanted to say, part of why the PUD failed was because we did want to try to get that master plan, which hasn't taken place, but I think if it did with a marketing plan, a branding plan for the city, you could get a developer in. And it's not fair to you, Greg, and I'm sorry that you had to go through all this, but it kind of awakened the city a bit, a lot of the people in the city, to be more involved and want to see what happens with the city. That's not a bad thing. This shouldn't be so adversarial. I mean, we all should be on the same team. It's unfortunate we couldn't have sat down with you together and tried to come up with something on the front end. You know, this works with the existing zoning. None of us are thrilled about it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you know, we do think a master plan is doable in the city for that reason. The city council anyway brought in groups to talk with us about developing this. It's not too late. I think it'd still be worthwhile to do that and look at all our zoning. Things that are already underway, it doesn't matter. And there's not a lot of develop commercially viable space left in this town, but there's still a pretty main corridor here where we can do some neat things, improvements on stuff that's already there. And this might lend itself to it, it might not. I don't think everybody's looking for a Ferris wheel, but I think, you know, if a restaurant goes into Mentor Beach Park, it does change the dynamic of that corner. And senior living doesn't really blend with that, my opinion. You know, I've opened restaurants for other people around the country, and it's not, from that standpoint, if I'm looking at it, and I know that's not our park, but it's our city, you know, I'm gonna look at the demographics close to the restaurant. So that's not ideal. But I know we are, and hopefully the plan is to the book on zoning codes is what I'm looking for, and not giving any tax abatements for something that we don't think is ideal.
Any other comments? If not, go ahead and close the public discussion. I think that, Greg, thank you for through. We'll continue to, as I think is probably your plan, work with the zoning regulations that's there.
I appreciate it, and it has been an emotional, it's just been a long road. But, you know, I appreciate your feedback just now. but most cities don't have a lot of developable land. You have to find innovative ways to turn over and get new housing supply and innovate. And, you know, think of, there's so many examples of it everywhere. I mean, you know, look at a Tremont. I mean, you had old houses everywhere. Now it's the hottest place in town, and it's beautiful. And there's quote high density townhouses. I mean, you have to find a way to work with what you already have. You're not going to get a new slate, you know. So I think people just need to be a little more open minded, and you know, let the process play out. Or you know, it's just there's just so much contention. It's impossible to get anything done. And you know, we didn't want to have to come. I didn't want to have to go back to the drawing board. We thought we had a good plan. I don't want to take up any more time, but it's just, there's more that I want to say, and I appreciate the time tonight, but appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of our meeting. Correspondence, if not, Mr. Mayor, any report?
Are we gonna do anything with this proposal now? Move it forward?
Oh, sorry, I thought that was an informal
Okay.
preliminary conversation. Yeah, so we'd expect the more formal conversation about that.
I guess from a procedural perspective then, so this is an informal discussion to bring the new plan for discussion
Yes,
purposes.
yeah, and I
So,
think the only specific that we heard was we'll look forward to hearing about, you know, kind of safety, infrastructure impact, which probably would be part of the development plan. That's the next
Architectural,
step, we
just
look at the
aesthetics.
architectural.
So
landscaping.
a more detailed, thorough submittal. to follow.
Correct,
Okay.
yes,
Thanks for your time.
and that would be more of the full plan at the next.
Appreciate it. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you.
My report, we had a very successful fall festival. Several of you, Mr. Busher, Mr. Shaboo, Mr. Moore, volunteered. Thank you. We did have Dan Troy here for the fall festival, and I was able to take him and two of his aides down to Lake Overlook Beach Park, showed them exactly what we're dealing with as far as erosion, and they were going to look into possibly see what they can do as far as grants.
Thank you. Any questions for me? If not, Mr. Shaboo.
Yeah, like somebody already stated, we are looking into other companies. Maybe there are other companies that act like on this plan. I'm not sure whether we'll go with them or not, but we're looking at what different.
So can I'm sorry, can we get
We had
a
two-
more holistic conversation on master planning, I guess? This is the first I'm hearing that you're looking at something.
We're all learning as we go along,
Okay,
but I guess the intent is
who's looking at companies?
council.
The council is considering,
Looked at Envision
okay,
and Hannah, that's the other, Hannah.
and their
For now.
proposals are to come in and do a master plan for the city.
Yeah, work with us as far as coming up, what do we want? Here, I can give you a flyer from this.
Sure.
And we're gonna see where we're gonna go from there. Personally, I think the biggest problem is the cost. Not to say that, sometimes you have to spend money to do things,
But you
but
also have to have money in your budget.
Right.
To spend money.
I brought that up at that presentation. Strictly, if you don't have the budget or matching funds, it's the plan will stay on the shelf. And to the funding aspect of it, you know, I don't know a whole lot about city funding, taxes and all of that, what percentage goes to Mentor on the way. But these are discussions, or I would think that, you know, you look at Mentor and they've got all the money in the world. You look here, you look at our city and I don't know who decides what, but, or whether a conversation with that group would be beneficial. I just see the disparity in resources.
Matter on the way.
Right.
It's, I mean, it's all, that's the basis of economic development. That's what it is.
Right.
Got it? Now, I wonder if there aren't other funding sources for this kind of a master plan. like Development
True.
Council,
Now, they said that they would help us with
Authority,
grants.
or
They said they would help us
who's that?
finding
These
grants.
folks
They
who help
get-
find grants.
Yeah.
It
Right.
might, I mean, I don't know if we've ever engaged with any of those groups. It would be great. And there is a Lake
I
County Economic Development
think-
Council, there's the Lake County Port Authority. You know, those are all county-wide options, maybe through Mr. Troy.
I think Holly's constantly looking for grants.
Absolutely. Thing with the grants, a lot of times it's matching funds.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna give you 500,000, you gotta pony up another 500,000.
And honestly, that's, this is good, but it might not be money well spent. In my opinion, if we're not serious about getting whatever resources we need to manage, we won't be able to respond. I guess is my point, unless you budget for it. And I tell you what, Mentor on the Lake, the last I looked, is not one of the lower end tax communities. 100%.
It's about in the middle.
It's in the upper half,
No,
let's say.
it's not. It's about in the middle. If you look at village rates for the Lake County.
Okay,
They came up with it.
all right, well, let's say it's in the middle, you're right, okay. But you got the community, questioning us not having a master plan. I don't think that is at all uncommon for a city our size. Now, if the community wants to increase its taxes, right, we can build the master plan into the budget. The city is doing what it can do. Can it do more? Yes. But, it really does boil down to a matter of resources. And it's frustrating when you don't have it. And so whether it's a discussion with who, the county fathers, do they even have fathers anymore? I don't know. Commissioners, right? Yeah, how does that square? I see the waste, actually, they've got so much money, it's a waste with these
But we can't,
budgets.
they do. But that's not true. That's not.
Well, that is matter.
That is not, we are not matter, unless what you're proposing is one of the units, but not.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
That's not gonna happen.
That was not-
That's already been discussed. It's not gonna happen.
okay, sure. All right, well, that is interesting, though.
Yes.
I'd like to be kept abreast of the, and also watching it as the comes a little bit more closely, but good to know. They're
The thoughts
looking,
or
it was-
plans, that's all good, but I think Ralph is just,
That's, I think, a
Now-
lot worse.
Now brings up a point. Let's say we do decide, well, this is great, we pay these people 50 grand. And then, but then what they plan is gonna cost money. Something, it's all gonna cost all the way down the line. And I hate to use that as a reason not to do it, but sometimes that's reality. Because the thought is good.
Have members of the community come in and lead on a regular basis. Start to formulate its own plan.
Which is a good idea. I think we're trying to start
Trying to
something.
put together, right, the citizens
Oh, that's
advisory.
right, that's right, okay.
We're trying to do that already, so.
That's
That would be a
Are we
start.
getting any luck getting volunteers?
I'm still looking for several volunteers.
That's the biggest problem now in everybody these days. Volunteers. And that would be the best way to do it.
I did see
Because there's some sharp people. Even out here in the audience, they know this stuff.
even our.
Out here in the audience,
Not
they
if
really
we-
try.
Not if we make you all mad, not if we make you all mad.
At the end of the day, there's no one better than your own.
Right.
We
There's a
could
lot
find a
of them
way to
understand
work
all.
together. It seems like, I think Susan said earlier, adversarial, and that really is all it is felt on our end, as I'm sure it's felt on your end as well. But we really, if we really all do want the best men around the lake, we do need to find a way where we can actually listen to and work with each other, understanding the limitations you have. And I think on our end, that, you do have to dream big. I understand that, so you can get a reality that's somewhere, in reality. So if there is a way that we can work together, absolutely. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I know on the citizens end.
This
And I'll
committee
talk to you
is
about
the
the citizens advisory thing after all this, but I really want something that is more that is more give and take as opposed to, it seems like we're saying things to stonewall you and we're hearing things that stonewall us, and nothing's gonna change that. And I don't want it to be that way. I was very thankful.
All right, Mr. Shubu, anything else from the council? Was there a conversation about moving forward, or this was just a consideration?
And there are other companies out there, and we want to see some other, hear from others before we decide. We've only had two, and there's several here.
Thank you for that. Any questions, other questions? If not, when we have an old MS properties, we will continue to table that in response to the moratorium. Any other actions?
No, not yet.
Okay. New business, I think we talked about that in the future. Do we need to add clarity to certain aspects of our fencing requirements or lot? That's
There's something in the works for the fence, on ordinance.
There is.
very good. Okay, so any
The need is there.
any comments should be submitted to the ordinance committee.
Well, I know, for one of the things we're looking at is the language on how, about repairing a fence versus placing a fence. We haven't really discussed heights of fence or anything like that,
Okay,
but that could be added to that conversation, I'm sure.
great. Thank you.
Because we are looking to make things a little more friendlier towards our residents. It makes sense, rather than require a resident to come down to get a permit to fix their fence.
Yeah.
That didn't make a whole lot of sense to some of us.
True.
Good. Good to know.
He was talking about the border lot.
Yeah, that hasn't been approached in that fashion yet, but that can be addressed.
Technically, it was 2 years ago, and council decided not to do it. But leave it up to the planning and zoning commission to decide.
Today's not the
Yes.
So do we need to make a recommendation for ordinance to close this?
I think we do. I don't think we'll have a specific specific set of recommendations here, but I am going to take that as a motion that would request that the ordinance committee look specifically at fencing for corner lots and parcels. Remain as consistent as possible. Is that a decent enough motion?
Yes.
It's just what you meant to say.
Second.
Second for Mr. Sweeney.
Could you send us an email concerning what you want us to look at?
I think Mr. Shabu will put it in his notes and he can read it tomorrow.
Okay.
There we go.
And it seems to me everything that I've ever dealt with on corner lots and fences seems to be one of, not of, one or the other of 40-foot setback.
I think the question, here's the question I'd like to see addressed is to build on this a little bit. For the second frontage, right? The main frontage which is your address and you have your second frontage. For the second frontage specifically, is there a different setback we could consider that has to do with maintaining vision, from the right of way, but allows that property owner to reclaim as much of that into a private backyard? I think that's the specific question we tonight and in other situations looked at 6 feet from the sidewalk. Of course, we have issues where there's not sidewalks, especially back here. We've almost had to, many of us go drive by, stand and look and measure. So that would be the specific question. I think would be very helpful to get additional thought and structure around. I mean, to me, there's 2 ways to deal with it. It could be fence height, it could be, vision. But I think that's the specific. Now, did I modify your note here?
What would otherwise be the side yard?
Well, yes, what would otherwise be the size? Yeah, that's second. I'm just.
She brings it
feeling
home.
it.
I grade it out. She brings it home.
I think we got it. Okay, the motion is on the table. Can we go ahead and call the roll to?
Mrs. Casey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo? Aye. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Bush? Aye.
Our next meeting is set for October the 3rd. I have a motion to adjourn. We'll adjourn by acclamation. All in favor, by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Oh!
Yes, ma'am.
Question for your citizens advisory
I'm listening.
group, whatever. I
Yeah.
was just trying to,
No,
I
that's-
couldn't remember if it was a
Uh-huh.
committee or whatever. I was very interested in emailing,
Okay.
but from what I heard, is there like 2 people from Salida? I just didn't.
No,
you know
no,
what mean? Like,
I have,
Are there others? I just didn't want to.
no, I mean, you're fine.
Okay,
Send me an email. and
all right.
Just,
Just,
that's
do I
your-
just set my interest and?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all I need, Tess. Okay, thank you.
I hope I can write that up. Oh, no, it's just practically.